wake me up to another good morning. Time to go.
Are you ready to explore God's wild and wonderful world? Welcome to the Nat Theo podcast. I'm your host, Erin Lynham. I'm a certified master naturalist, Bible teacher, and author. And I am so excited to dive into God's written word, the Bible, and his created world with you. Have you ever found something in nature and you weren't really sure what it was, but you were very curious to find its name, and then you were able to learn what it was? It feels very good to be able to find out what something is that God has made. This happens to me a lot. There is always more to discover and learn about in God's world. Today, we're learning about a woman who was very curious, and her curiosity actually helped save an entire species of animal. To learn what something is in nature, we need to pay attention to the details because God is a very detailed creator. On Nat Theo, we often talk about how important it is to learn what something is and what something isn't, and really seeing something as God created it to be. Something that has helped my kids and me to see the details of creation is Apologia's award-winning science curriculum. Apologia doesn't only help us learn the facts and names about what things are in nature, but we also remember these fascinating discoveries because of Apologia's hands-on approach to learning. Through fun, easy-to-perform experiments, student journals, and colorful textbooks, we can learn about the details of God's creation and then go outside and see it for ourselves. Discover God's wild and wonderful world with Apologia's award-winning science courses available for preschool through 12th grade at apologia.com. The creature we are learning about today is not very well known, and perhaps that is because there are not very many of them. This creature has gone from being endangered to extinct, back to endangered to extinct, and they are now making a comeback. This creature is the black-footed ferret. Have you ever heard of it? Here's our trail map.
Are you ready?
We are going to learn what is a black-footed ferret and how did the black-footed ferret almost disappear. We will learn how did curiosity save the black-footed ferret and why is our God-given curiosity important. As we hear the amazing story of black-footed ferrets, you will learn about a team of biologists who played a very big role in helping to save these ferrets. But before they could rescue the ferrets, they had to first find and count them. Counting is important in biology or in the study of living things. In fact, math is very important in all of nature and science. Now, math is not my favorite subject to teach, and I don't feel very strong in it. That's why, as a mom, I am very thankful for CTC Math. I know math is important for helping my kids better understand everything that God has made. And with CTC Math, we are able to complete simple yet effective video lessons and interactive questions, so my kids can grow in math skills. And I can accurately track their progress. And we can all enjoy less time struggling over math and more time enjoying God's creation. Explore CTC Math for free for 1 week at ctcmath.com. All right, listeners, here is our trivia question. What is a baby black-footed ferret called? Take a guess and we will find out at the end of today's episode. You know, when my family moved to Colorado 9 years ago, my husband told me that ferrets are native to Colorado. Do you know what it means when an animal is native to an area? A native animal is an animal that belongs in that area. It was not moved there by people. It is living where God created it to live. Now, I thought my husband was joking because when I thought about ferrets, I thought about the pet ferrets that I had when I was a little girl. My sister and I each had a pet ferret. Mine's name was Cinnamon, and we brought them home from the pet store and raised them in our house. So my experience with ferrets had been as pets, not as wild animals. However, several years later, after my husband told me this, when I was training to become a master naturalist, I learned all about black-footed ferrets that are indeed native to Colorado, and I was even asked to teach a class on them. Now, this class wasn't sitting in a classroom with 4 walls or slides up on a screen. No, it was much more fun and hands-on. We drove out to a natural area, and all the class participants started to arrive around sunset. I taught them all about black-footed ferrets, and then we strapped on snake guards around our boots, and we went for a hike on the prairie at night to look for the ferrets. Why do you think we went out in the dark? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, although you might already have a guess as to why we were looking for them at night. But we'll get there in a few minutes. First, we should probably answer the question, what is a black-footed ferret? Black-footed ferrets are mammals. You might remember from past episodes that mammals are animals that have hair or fur. They are warm-blooded. They are vertebrates, meaning they have a backbone. Almost all of them have live births, meaning that they birth a baby. They don't lay eggs. And mama mammals feed their babies with milk from their bodies. More specifically, black-footed ferrets are mammals in the weasel family. Can you guess any other animals that might be a part of the weasel family? I'll play music for a few moments, and I want you to take a guess as to some other animals that might be in the weasel family. Other animals in the weasel family include, of course, weasels, along with badgers, mink, martens, river otters and sea otters, wolverines, fishers, and polecats. You might remember from my story that our class that evening, we went out looking for black-footed ferrets at nighttime. Do you have a guess as to why that might be? If you said because they are nocturnal, you are correct. A nocturnal animal is an animal that is mostly active during nighttime hours. And a fun thing about black-footed ferrets is that the way you find them is by shining large lights and looking for shiny green eyes looking back at you. Their eyes almost look like they are glowing, but they are not. They are reflective. If you listened to episode 43 about creature night vision, you might remember that God created some animals with a reflective layer in their eye called the tapetum lucidum. It's kind of like a mirror, and it causes any light that enters the eye to kind of bounce back so that the eye can use that light a second time and see more in the dark. This is one way that God designed many mammals to see well when it's dark out. In the case of the black-footed ferret, that tapetum lucidum reflective layer causes the ferret's eye to reflect with an emerald green color. It's absolutely beautiful. The night of my class and hike, we believe that we did see a black-footed ferret. I saw a faint dark outline of a long weasel-type creature standing up on a mound of dirt. And a moment later, a gentleman in the class who was using the light, He saw a green reflection from the same area.
Wow, look at that.
And we are pretty sure that it was a black-footed ferret. Now, to see a black-footed ferret in the wild is quite rare. One reason being, of course, that they're active at night, but also because there are not very many of them left. In fact, the area where I led this class and hike is closed to visitors at night, except for these classes. It is a protected area for the black-footed ferrets. You see, this is one of several areas in the United States where scientists are releasing black-footed ferrets back out into the wild to help reestablish their population in hopes that there will be more black-footed ferrets in the future. Why are there so few black-footed ferrets? Well, there was a day when these animals nearly disappeared. In fact, scientists thought that they had disappeared. That is, until one woman's curiosity helped to save them. Here is the incredible story of the black-footed ferrets. As I mentioned before, black-footed ferrets are native, or they belong, where I live in Colorado. They once lived across prairies of the West. However, in the 1800s, as settlers began making houses and farms in the West, the black-footed ferrets began to disappear because of what is called the 3 Ps: plows, poison, and plague. First, it's important to understand that a main food source for the black-footed ferrets is prairie dogs. Black-footed ferrets live in prairie dog towns, which we learned all about on episode 41, and they eat prairie dogs. Now that can be hard to hear, but it's simply a way that black-footed ferrets survive. When we talk about the 3 Ps, plows, poison, and plague, it has a lot to do with the prairie dogs that the black-footed ferrets eat. You see, farmers are not big fans of prairie dogs, and in this case, they wanted to get rid of them. Plows got rid of prairie dog habitat, as farmers replaced natural prairie with farm fields and crops. People used poison to kill prairie dogs, thinking about those prairie dogs as pests. And there is a plague that prairie dogs can catch and carry. But how does all of this affect the black-footed ferrets? When plows destroy prairie habitats, black-footed ferrets lose their habitat and much of their food source. And what about that poison? The poison that kills prairie dogs also poisons the black-footed ferrets. And finally, the 3rd P, plague. Although the prairie dogs can sometimes survive the plague sickness that they carry, the black-footed ferrets that eat those prairie dogs cannot survive it. Black-footed ferrets eat the prairie dogs and then catch that plague sickness and die. So these are the 3 main reasons that black-footed ferrets began disappearing. In fact, by the 1950s, it was believed that the black-footed ferrets had completely gone extinct. Do you know what extinct means? Extinct means a creature is no longer living on Earth. There are no more of its species. And so people believed that the black-footed ferrets were gone forever. But then, about 14 years later, in the year 1964, a small group of black-footed ferrets was found alive. So they were no longer thought to be extinct, but endangered. Endangered means a species is likely to go extinct, or that we will have no more of them in the future if we don't take action to protect them. Sadly, though, that little group of ferrets that was discovered in 1964 also died. And within another 15 years, the black-footed ferret was again thought to be extinct for the second time. That was until the year 1981, so about 43 years ago, when one woman's curiosity helped save the black-footed ferrets. Before we learn this woman's story, what is something in nature that you are curious about? When you want to learn something new, where do you go? When my kids or I am interested in something, we often start with great books, and we find those at christianbook.com. christianbook.com has a fantastic collection of books, activity books, and curriculum that help answer our questions and turn our curiosity into new knowledge of everything God has made. Recently, when we were curious about the ocean, we found all kinds of great ocean books at christianbook.com. They recently came out with their Christmas catalog, and I've been browsing it for great books and toys for my kids. Explore their collection of nature books at the link in our show notes. In the year 1981, black-footed ferrets were thought to be extinct for the second time. That was until one day a rancher in Wyoming made a very interesting discovery. His ranch dog, named Shep, had a carcass or the dead body of a small animal that the rancher did not recognize. The rancher simply took the carcass away from his dog and threw it over the fence into his field. But his wife, Lucille, was curious. She wanted to know what this animal was. She took it to a local taxidermist who immediately recognized the animal as the black-footed ferret. A team of biologists went to the ranch and the surrounding areas and found 130 black-footed ferrets, so they were not extinct after all. A few years later, in 1984, the black-footed ferrets again started dying off. Biologists took action. They rushed in and saved the last ferrets, 18 of them. After that, the scientists began taking care of the black-footed ferrets in breeding and training programs that still continue today. In these programs, black-footed ferrets are bred so that more can be born. And then they are trained how to live in the wild, how to use burrowing systems, and how to hunt. And then once they are ready, they are released in protected areas, like the one where I taught my class and hike that evening. Listener, can you imagine if Lucille had not been curious? If they had just left the carcass of that animal in their field and biologists had not come in and found the remaining ferrets and then protected the last 18 of them? Curiosity is a powerful thing. In this case, it helps save an entire species of an incredible animal that God made. You know, God created you with great curiosity also. He wants you to follow that curiosity so that you can continue to learn about His wild and wonderful world and stand in awe of all that He has created. Do you know what that word awe means? Awe means to be filled with amazement and wonder. Have you ever stood before an ocean, or surrounded by mountains, or under a starry night sky? You probably felt a sense of awe. Awe might sometimes make you feel small, and that might not seem like a good thing if you are excited to grow up and get bigger. But sometimes it is good to feel small, because it reminds us of how big our God is. That is awe. And curiosity helps us experience awe as we learn more about the amazing things that God has made. Job 37:14 is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It says, "Stop and consider the wondrous works of God." Now, you might have heard that curiosity can be dangerous, and that can be true in some cases. Someone might be curious about what will happen if they do something that their parent or caregiver told them not to do. Or someone might be curious about watching, reading, or seeing something that they know might not be good for them. That is not the curiosity that we are talking about. You see, God gave us curiosity to encourage us to chase after His wonders. But sometimes the enemy, the devil, wants to hijack or steal our curiosity, and use it to lead us away from God. Let's not let him do that. You can protect your God-given curiosity by chasing after everything that is lovely and true, everything that is from God. Philippians 4:8 says, "Brothers and sisters, think about the things that are good and worthy of praise. Think about the things that are true and honorable and right and pure and beautiful and respected." The thing about curiosity is that it is kind of like a muscle in our bodies. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. And if we stop using it, it can get weaker. Whenever I learn what something is in nature, I want to strengthen that curiosity muscle. I get so excited and I want to keep learning. My curiosity encourages me to keep learning about everything that God has made. So listener, use your curiosity for good. Make that curiosity muscle stronger. When it encourages you to discover something in nature, go find out about it. Now, always do so in a safe manner. Ask an adult to help you check out books or go find something outside. But fuel your curiosity so it keeps getting stronger and keeps leading you in your journey to becoming a junior naturalist or someone studying God's wild and wonderful world. Do you remember our trivia question? What is a baby black-footed ferret called? A baby black-footed ferret is called a kit, just like with baby foxes. Although, as we learned, black-footed ferrets are in the weasel family, and foxes are canines, or wild dogs. But both of their babies are called kits. An adult female ferret is called a Jill, and an adult male ferret is called a Hob. Now it's your turn to explore. Let your curiosity lead you to awe and wonder. What is something that you are curious about in nature? Ask a parent or caregiver to help you follow that curiosity and learn something new. Is there an animal that you want to learn about? Do you have a question about how something works in nature? Here are a few ideas for following your curiosity. Check out library books about that animal or nature topic. Or go on a nature walk and see if you can find what you are looking for. Maybe an insect that you know lives in the area, or a bird that you've seen in your neighborhood. Watch it for a while and see what it does. Or ask an expert. There might be someone in your neighborhood, school, or church that knows a lot about gardening, or birds, or reptiles. Or your city might have a nature program with a teacher that can help answer your questions. Don't let your curiosity fizzle out. God gave it to you for a reason, to help you discover who He is through what He has made in nature. Let your curiosity lead you to an answer so that that curiosity keeps getting stronger. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to share it with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review Nat Theo wherever you listen. Until next time, keep exploring God's wild and wonderful world.